PlayStation just came out and said that they want to, quote, revitalize the market for live service games. So their CEO just said.
That's right.
And you may think that's a bit strange because
they want to revitalize live service games. The year is 2019.
They did just kill one of their biggest live services, Destiny 2. And then they salted the earth whenever they fired hundreds of staff in what's been described as a generational talent loss. Because, hey, if a Destiny 3 was ever going to happen, you'd probably need experienced developers to build the thing.
You'd probably want the people who made Destiny 2 to make it, yeah.
And to put it bluntly, Bungie has quite literally been cut in half. Now remember, they're the studio PlayStation paid $3.6 billion for to lead their live service.
To be fair, they also said they lost 700 or 800 billion on that too already.
Strategy. And its failure is going to be very, very messy. But PlayStation's leadership might have just tipped their hand a little bit. Bungie are a remnant of the old strategy. All of this today comes from a recent Famitsu interview with SIE CEO Hideaki Nishino. Though not directly, it was brought into English by WCCF Tech. Now, most of it covers his own gaming experiences and PlayStation's hardware, right down to teasing handhelds. Hey, handhelds, pretty cool. But the bit that made
handheld, like, dude, like, who gives a shit?
Headlines was, of course, their plan for live service games.
Yeah.
I'm now going to quote him. We believe that live service games are content that attracts users on a global level, so we want to continue to revitalize the market through both first-party and third-party content. A thrilling statement, to be sure. Revitalizing the market. What does that mean and what's it going to look like? After Concord? After the last
I'm a big fan of live service games. I don't think the problem is live service. I think the games are just bad. That's the issue. And it's also like live service games ebb and flow. Like you're going to have moments where like, you know, PoE is like that for me, where like I'll play PoE a lot for a while and then I'll take a break from the game and I'll come back and I'll be super excited to play it again. The problem is that like people assume that these live service games have to have constant attention and constant development, which is impossible to maintain.
Online after closing Bluepoint for not delivering their God of War live service, after shutting down Dark Outlaw Games before it even teased a single project, and of course now gutting Bungie. Quite a question. Good news though is I do have some answers. But first, we need to check in on the absolute carnage at Bungie. 292 people. That is how many were just laid off from Bungie's Bellevue headquarters alone. And that's per the legally required warn notice, and this is for cuts that will be taking effect by July 9th. And to be clear, that isn't everyone. Add the contractors and the out-of-state and international staff, and the real number will climb quite substantially. Now, when Destiny 2 ended service, Bloomberg sources reported that this was coming. Paul Tassi also alleged that 40 to 55% of the studio was in Sony's crosshairs. The reduction in force, as a passive voice-laden social media post called it, came basically down to this. Bungie leadership knew Destiny 2 had disappointed audiences. So, with no new project, they had to reorganize.
They had to disappoint them more with Marathon? I feel like if you think Bungie sucks and like Destiny sucks, then why would you go and do Marathon too? It doesn't make sense.
And it's grimly funny when you read through a statement like this, you know, the way that they had to reorganize Bungie.
People are crazy.
What you see is that no one really takes responsibility.
Oh, what a surprise.
Statement. But if we want a better picture of things, I think we shouldn't be looking at what Herman says. We should be taking a look at staff reports. And from staff reports, we know that entire teams have been gutted. Everyone who built Destiny cinematics is gone. Their industry-leading raids and dungeons team are gone. And more still went from the support team at SIE. And those SIE people are likely the ex-Bungie staff that PlayStation pulled into its own operations back in late 2024, where they were basically brought in to support live service stuff. Tassi reports that things are such a mess that actually the contractors who were meant to ship Destiny 2's last hotfix, that they may have actually been cut. Thus,
you cut the contractors that were supposed to hotfix?
Impacting the hotfixes.
Oh
but it does make sense, because the people in charge of Bungie aren't in a better state. And
That's
if you
awful.
read the warn notice, you see it's a decapitation. Title after title marked senior and up across the...
By the way, thank God. Thank God we have directors of development, senior producers. Like, I hate seeing the low-level guys get the axe for the decisions that these people make. Yeah, you need to get rid of the leadership because fundamentally, like, Marathon plays very well. Destiny, I've never played Destiny, but the way it looks is that it plays very well. So, like, whenever you're looking at a game that plays extremely well, and like, you know, again, I think that they executed the vision. It's just that the vision was stupid.
Bungie organization,
this is a good
and
thing.
even Marathon. Co-founder Jason Jones.
Wait a minute. Wait a little bit more. Senior art producer. That's crazy. Do you remember him with the salute?
Marathon. Co-founder
That's
Jason
bad.
Jones is out as chief vision officer.
All the leadership needs to go.
Spotted by
True.
the Games Post.
So
Though, of
true.
course, some will likely be cushioned by their stock payments fully vesting. Of course, those are the payments vesting from the sale of Bungie to PlayStation. But even with that, it still is a massive loss of talent and experience at the studio. Jason Schreier reported that studio head Justin
I
Truman
mean, is it really talent if they've torpedoed two different brands? Like, I mean, I think this idea that you need, like, this institutional knowledge is true in some cases, but it's not always necessary. Look at Expedition 33. There's tons of people that are just, like, random guys that make really great video games. This idea that you have, like, it's more credentialism, where it's like, oh, no, we actually need all these people that have these, you know, arbitrary pieces of criteria that assign them to this value system. No. It's bullshit. If you want to make a good game, you can make a good game. And I think that very clearly the people that were working in those roles, they obviously didn't do their job because they have two failing franchises. Even Destiny 2 was a failing franchise. It was. Like, I mean, you know, people are positive about it, but that's mainly in the context of Marathon. Before this, how many videos have we watched about Destiny 2 dying too?
Stepping down, and he was only appointed
Expedition
last
33
August
isn't even that
whenever
good.
Pete
Yeah, it
Parsons
is.
quit.
Yeah, it is.
Tassie
Idiot.
suggests that his replacement is Poria Torkan, a former VP of Operations and 10-year Bungie veteran. Good luck to them, I suppose. But going back to Truman, well, Truman's last 9 months in the office
bait,
have,
yeah.
well, they've more been about delivering the death of Destiny 2 and overseeing the stripping of the studio. Given that grim job,
Yep.
it does make sense that he'd quit. Especially because he wasn't doing it alone. If you take a look at your screen right now, you can see the full statement, but I'll save you the reading. Their statement boils down to 4 words. A reduction was necessary. How much of this round of layoffs was PlayStation's decision? And why would PlayStation gut Bungie, people with live service experience, whenever they also want to revitalize the market for live service? In hindsight,
Because what they say in interviews isn't necessarily what they do. That's the reason why. And also because it's very clear that with 2 live service video games, Bungie clearly isn't equipped to run a live service game. If you failed twice, why would they want to pay you to do it a third time? And also, like, even if you want to take another risk on them, you have to hedge your bets. So, like, whenever you're losing, let's say, like, $20 million a month on Bungie, well, maybe you can afford to lose $10 million a month, but not 20. So, like, at a certain point, you have to be like, okay, well, let's try to reduce our costs here a little bit because it's clearly not working.
Pete Parsons leaving last August was kind of the watershed moment for Bungie leadership. With one expansion missing sales targets and another heading the same way, PlayStation simply stopped letting Bungie limp on under their own steam.
Exactly,
Sony
yeah.
moved in and they decided what came next at a studio that until recently had ran itself. This was all in the works from the start of
This is what Microsoft needs to do to Halo Studios, by the way. Microsoft needs to do the exact same thing, and they're doing it. Like, it's crazy that you can take the 2 biggest franchises that sold Xboxes, Halo and Gears, and just totally mismanage them for the better part of a decade. And, like, E-Day looks like it's going to be really good, right? It does. But, like, we haven't played it yet. We don't know. And Halo has just been languishing. Like, what's happening? They might be making a Halo MMO? Oh, right.
year at least.
That's the
now, in one
solution.
way, keeping Bungie active at all is a bit of a show of faith in the staff who are left. They'll seemingly be allowed to build new projects
died after
whilst
Reach.
keeping
I agree.
Marathon running. But in another sense, it is far too little, far too late. Bungie's ex-leadership aren't paying the price for their poor choices, or for PlayStation's hands-off attitude that led all of this fester. Of course, the Bungie leadership's leverage has been, say, threat of legal action, the sort of thing that's kept them employed until now, or at least long enough for their stock options to vest. Remember, they're not the people who really built these games, who maybe tried to build, say, the playful community-building prototypes and pitches that have been going around the internet lately, like even the Destiny dating sim. Looks fun. I've seen some people get real thirsty for it, though I imagine most of those things were a bit more serious. And ultimately, it's the staff who've been failed badly enough to, lose their jobs, who are the people actually suffering here. But what about the things that are left? We do have Hulst's line about, quote, resource needs and role within our broader portfolio strategy. We know from reports that Fair Games has been in trouble for years, with leadership leaving and then Insider Gaming reporting that
this was a game, dude, this was absolutely like a BLM era, COVID era game. And like, people just aren't buying that shit anymore. It's not, it's just, it's over. I'm sorry. It's over. It's been over. Nobody is interested in this kind of content anymore. Like, if this game comes out, it is going to be such a colossal failure.
playtests, quote, can't find the fun, which is a bit of a problem when you're making a game. Consider how much experience just walked out the door from Bungie.
Yeah.
Senior leadership who have actually delivered projects. Designers who, even though there have been problems with Destiny, ultimately did set the bar for how a game feels to play. That Bungie gunplay is goddamn amazing. Keeping all...
Even the Marathon gunplay was good. Like, the actual nuts and bolts of Marathon were very well executed. Like, in my opinion, I think that, like, there are a lot of games that have bad nuts and bolts, but they're good gameplay. But Marathon was a game that had bad gameplay, but good nuts and bolts. It played on a very fundamental level extremely well. It's kind of like retail WoW, where it's like, take away, distill down, cut away all of the content in the game, and just like, how does this game play on a very base level? Retail WoW and World of Warcraft fundamentally plays extremely well. It's the same as Overwatch. It's just that you might not like what's actually being done. Now, an exception to that with Blizzard is Diablo 4. I think Diablo 4 is just a bad game up and down. Like, it's a bad, the gameplay is bad, the design is bad, the nuts, like the way that you move your character in that game is bad. Just very, on like its very most fundamental, minute level, like your character getting stuck in corners, the way that it interacts with hitboxes of other characters, it's just a bad game. It is a bad game with every single element, but Marathon is not a bad game at every element. They fixed a lot. I played at the recent patch. It was trash.
All of those people
compared to
would have
PoE2,
been
it's not even
logistical
close.
chaos.
It's pathetic.
Finding work for everyone to do, managing all of that. And it sure would have been expensive in terms of the old monthly burn rate. But surely that beats the alternative, which has essentially just been losing that talent for good. Whatever Bungie tries to build next, and whatever PlayStation greenlights, it will be weaker for all of these losses. And then there's the wider PlayStation Live service strategy, which suffers, which will be trusted less now. Or, and this is the turn in this video that I maybe forecasted earlier, the old strategy would have suffered a lot, but the old strategy is just that. The old one. We've been a little dishonest, but hey, it's for the sake of storytelling. You see, we didn't give you everything from the Nishino interview earlier, and that's because when you see what he spends most of his answer on, it explains exactly what he means by revitalizing live service. Remember, he framed first-party and third-party content as the way to revitalize the market. And to do that, he points to two specific games. Those are Genshin Impact and Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. Genshin...
It's so over. Oh, God. Oh, great. So now you're gonna buy a fucking $700 PlayStation so you can play Genshin Impact on it. Oh my god. It's so over. How do they know that? How do they not know their audience? They do. The reality is that the PlayStation games, so this is what they're trying to do, is they're trying to tap into the massive, because like all of the really big live service video games are made by different developers. Like Fortnite's made by Epic, Roblox is made by its own studio, World of Warcraft is made by Blizzard, Marvel Rivals is made by like NetEase or something. Like, let me think besides that, Genshin's made by Hoyoverse. You know, like all of the big live service games are very separate. And I think that's really it. And so, like, if you want to tap into live service games, you can't look at just kind of, I'm going to make a bunch of my own live service games, because that's just not how the ecosystem exists. Yeah, Warframe. And again, yeah, I could do Warframe, Wuthering Waves, Path of Exile. Yeah, all of these games. What I'm saying is that, like, live service video games, it's like, I don't know, it's like the Spartans in 300, right? Like, oh, what are all your jobs? Like, I'm a painter, I'm a fucking, you know, a carpenter or something like that. What are the Spartans' jobs? They're just warriors. And that's the reason why I think those companies are successful, is that they make one product, they are devoted specifically to that one individual product, and that is the main thing that they deliver. And I think that's the reason why they're successful. And that's why you see so many of these companies that make live service video games are just making that one game.
Was, of course, a PlayStation exclusive for 4 years, and Xbox reportedly missed out on the deal there. But it's a perfect example of a live service that works for PlayStation. PlayStation collects 30% of all revenue generated in the game on their platform. And that, of course, includes payments in return for in-game currency in free live service games. In the interview, Nishino talks about running a promotion for 10% more in-game currency if you bought it on a new PS5. And I think that's just a perfect example of why it's so good for Sony. Think about it, right? No game development costs. No game development salary.
Everything is sports betting, anime waifu, goon baiting, gambling, fucking gotcha games. Like, what is going on, man? It's just, it's so sad to see. And the thing is, like, by the way, guys, everything's casino. Yeah, it's not really like this. There are a lot of really good video games out there right now, and I don't think that you should lose hope, but it is really disconcerting, and it's disappointing to see a lot of these big companies chasing trends that just have so many consumer unfriendly practices involved with them. It really is. I don't like it.
To pay, just, you know, keeping the integration working and the game supported. It's basically
Pokemon
free
TCG,
money, unlike any of that money you would have got from Destiny, because you have to spend a lot of money to get that money.
Yeah,
very much not the case in something like Genshin Impact. That philosophy pays off with
which is, I think, by the way,
as well.
Which is, by the way, the I think that's also the goal of Xbox, is to be a platform.
Next PlayStation live service game, and Nishino is 100% wearing his marketing hat here rather than talking about the further out things like, say, Fair Games or Horizon Hunters Gathering that I think most of us kind of presume are a bit doomed. But there is then a second piece, and that is Arc System Works. And I bring them up because they're privately held.
I'm gonna start playing Monster Hunter again soon.
Make Marvel took on Fighting Souls. And they're not owned by Sony. That means that Sony...
I don't know why they're putting so much effort and time into this game. Nobody's going to play this game. Like, not in, like, a really big way. I think that, like, the moment that you have more than 2 characters on the screen with a fighting game, you've already lost. We've already seen this fail with not Marvel Rivals, excuse me, with 2XKO, and it's also failed with Mortal Kombat. Like, I don't think it's straight up wrong. Okay. Like, it's going to be big. Okay. I don't think it's I don't think it's going to be there's I think it's going to be number 3 at best. It's going to be Street Fighter, Tekken, and then maybe this. That's it. Right? Like I'm not seeing it happen. That's good? You think that's good? Is that enough though? Is that enough for it to be like a flagship title? I don't know, man.
Sony doesn't have to
guess we'll
pay those
find out.
salaries, doesn't
we'll
have
find
to pay
out.
those pensions. Yes, they
I
pay
don't think so.
money to that company to develop the game, and the company will pay for all of those things. But for Sony, it's pretty great. They just get to be a publisher who contracts
see us
out
beating Mortal
an
Kombat.
outside team to make a
I said
game
best
that
case
suits
scenario.
their historical strengths. It's fantastically risk limited for them, because if the whole thing goes foobar, they can cut it off, and the bag they're left holding is a lot cheaper than, say, the Bungie bag. And it's exactly what they did with their biggest live service success. Helldivers 2. Arrowhead's not Sony-owned studio. That was just a regular
I
old
think
publisher.
also, like, I'm glad he brought that up, because I think that Sony poisoned the well with live service by trying to Trojan horse in the, like, signing up and using the Sony system. I think that people don't want to, like, if I have to log in twice to do something, I'm already like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking, this is, dude, why? And I think that's definitely, like, there are going to be people that remember that in 5 years. The PSN thing, they did it again. They're trying to do it with Tokon too. Yeah, but like the difference is that, like, if you start with that, I think it's like, okay, you're probably going to have a less, you know, you're going to maybe have fewer people that use it, but it's not the bait and switch. I think people with Helldivers got mad about the bait and switch. Like, okay, well, now you can't do this anymore.
Contract, and doing it that way strips out so much.
I think that's
risk
what I think. That's the way I feel.
Side. Tokon can bomb, and yes, it will reflect badly in PlayStation, but all they lose is their investment. There's no ongoing stock vesting, no severance, none of the bad press from laying off all those staff. And if it pays off, they win anyway, through, of course, the sales and the ongoing cut. And so this focus, as we see in these two games, is our clearest picture of what a new PlayStation Live service strategy could look like. And it's very different to the one that Jim Ryan kicked off. We've been holding to the principle that Marathon has to live so that audiences will trust that PlayStation Live services like Tokon will be supported. If PlayStation cuts investment, then so will players. But based on this interview, what they're going to do is just mitigate risk. There will be platform landlordism to keep revenues high, and of course, outside developers to limit their costs. In-house live services aren't dead yet. Guerrilla's Horizon game and Fair Games are still going, as is Marathon. But as PlayStation reckon, with years
I can't see how, like, you look at this gameplay, this looks like such shit. Like, how would anybody want to play this? Like, I get that, like, okay, well, maybe it plays way better, but it just looks like trash. Like, it's like there's not even, like, a definitive good art style to it, even. Like, it's not the Horizon art style. It's not, like, a cel-shaded art style. It's not an anime art style. It's, like, this weird amalgamation of the three, and it just sucks. It just looks bad, bro. Like, I don't know. I'll play it when it comes out, but, I mean, jeez.
Bets haven't paid off, exemplified by, of course, the promises that Bungie's leadership made to PlayStation, and how they very much didn't come true. While the skullduggery may have been done by Bungie leadership, it is, and we must always remember, the staff who are paying the price here. And that matters to you, because the Destiny team spent over a decade running one of the biggest live services on the planet. That means that they learned the most important and hardest type of lesson. Real ones that were painful because they were goddamn expensive. And that's the type of lesson that someone actually, like, learns from in a way that sticks. Because the stakes were real. The success was real. The failure was real. That's the experience PlayStation's live service future actually needs to be successful. And it's the experience they just cut loose. Because PlayStation won't carry a single cost it doesn't have to, even if doing so may sabotage their future.
I think that's what's happening with a lot of studios, is that a lot of studios are just simply unwilling to take on risks now because of how costly they are. Like, you have these video games that cost like $300 million to make, and it's like, okay, well, this game has to be like a blockbuster level success in order for it to do well. And I just don't, I don't see a world where that works, man. I don't at all. Sounds like Sony, a Japanese-run company, Bungie, an American-run company. Well, the problem, I don't think it's not because of like a language barrier or like a culture barrier. I think the reality is that Bungie just hasn't delivered good products. Like, for however popular people think Destiny is now, you can't deny that Destiny has massively failed, and we've had tons of videos talking about Destiny failing for like the better part of a year now. Like, even like, I think that one of their most recent expansions wasn't really, didn't have very high retention either. So I think that what happens now is that you're going to have more of these larger publishers that are going to be competing for creating hardware rather than being software ecosystems, because they're competing for third-party software, things like Genshin Impact and things like, I don't know, Wuthering Waves or whatever these other, like Roblox or Fortnite, right? These are third-party games, really. So, like, they're actually just competing for the same people using different hardware. And I think that's what's going to happen.
That's tomorrow's problem. Markets responding to today. As if to validate that closing statement that they won't carry the cost, they don't have to. Well, they've killed physical discs. Actually killed them. And you can learn about it in this video next.
It's getting a lot worse, too. Yeah, and why do you think Microsoft let Bungie go? No, I thought Bungie bought themselves out because Microsoft kept making them want to do Halo, and they didn't want to do that. That's what I remember, but like I could be wrong about that. Can you explain how this plague was pushed into gaming? Also, why didn't the companies refuse the woke propaganda if it was going to hurt their sales? Surely they did. Surely they knew we did. So the reason why, so let me explain the reason why, is that the reason why, like, again, the easy one is like the woke stuff, right? I can easily explain that. It's because it was culturally relevant and people weren't able to say no to it because there was a culture around toxic positivity of accepting that type of behavior and that ideology. So like, do you really want to be the white guy who tells people that the actual next protagonist shouldn't be a black female? No, because that's racist. You don't want to be that guy. So basically, you had a culture of toxic positivity because people didn't want to put their jobs at risk by trying to, throw a wet blanket over some feminist slop fantasy. So that's definitely number one, and I think that's why the woke stuff happened. But I think that for a larger market, video games started because video games are such a big industry, right? They're a bigger industry than movies and music put together. You have a lot of people that get involved with video games that don't actually care about them. They don't actually give a shit about video games. What they do give a shit about is they care about making money. And so now you have people that are focused around making money and trying to maximize profits that are involved in a creative endeavor. And whenever you have people that have a profit incentive and they don't have an artistic incentive, you have a huge problem and a massive disconnect. And I think that's what really has happened, is that you have people that are from the top down. They don't, with Steve Jobs' speech, yeah, basically, right? I mean, like, you don't have somebody like Steve Jobs. It's a product person. You have a marketing person. You have a sales person. You have a accounting person. You have a person who's able to, because basically what Steve Jobs said is that at the beginning part of a company and the growth stage of a company, the people that really rise to the top are the ones that innovate on products. But then once your products reach market saturation and the company reaches maturity, then instead of having product people taking the reins, you have marketing people and sales people taking the reins, because they're the ones that are at that time providing the biggest benefit to the company in terms of the value that they create. But the problem is that you have a inversion of what the value system of the company is. The company is not built around marketing. The company is not built around sales. It's built around products. So it's like this weird catch-22 where like you need products and sales, and it's important to do that, but products and sales won't matter if you don't have the products itself in order to underpin that. And I think that's basically what he was saying. I think it's true. I agree with your end goals and your response to my tweet, by the way. Oh, this is the viewer. I read your tweet earlier. My only point was the companies are more involved in pushing things. That way the consumer is less to blame for taking the path of least resistance and favoring digital sales. Well, I think that it's like, that's what I was saying about it being everybody's fault with like physical media receding. I recognize your name. You're the person who made that tweet about me. So the reason why I disagree, I see what you're saying, and I think that companies do want to shift to making things digital, and I think that also but the reason why companies want to shift to making things digital is because we don't have consumer protection laws that give us more privileges with digital media. And so that's, I think, the biggest weakness that digital media has right now is it's the same problem as in the metaverse. I think the reason why a lot of companies want to have metaverses is because that's an environment where they can have a monopoly in it. That's an environment where they can do whatever they want. This is an unregulated market that if it becomes large enough, they can effectively become God over. And so that's effectively what's happening with licensing. Like basically, you know, if you have a tug of war between like the consumer and the company, the tug of war, the consumer is winning with physical media a lot more than they're winning with digital media. But what my opinion is that the tug of war should not be happening at all. The actual reality should be the individuals should be keeping the government accountable to keep the companies accountable. That's the main issue. They're beating us to the punch. Well, that's why they want NFTs, right? They want all that kind of stuff so they can monetize transactions and stuff like that. So should licenses for games cost less than buying the product? Well, I think I definitely agree on that. Sony's wanted more control of their ecosystem for a long time. They've did crazy announcements over the past week to show their intentions. Well, I think that very clearly. So I don't agree with you about Sony like wanting to control their ecosystem. Now I do, but I think that in the last 3 years, they've clearly had two different philosophies because historically you're accurate. And then for like 2 years, Sony switched their script. And I think it was mainly because of Helldivers. Helldivers was very successful. And because of Helldivers' success, Sony decided to take more games to third-party markets. And I think that was successful, but maybe it reduced the amount of console sales. Maybe it reduced the amount of, like exclusive game sales or something like that. And so now Sony is pulling back on the, like third-party releases, and which is, I think, good. Like, by the way, like game exclusive, like console exclusives are not good for anybody. Like, it's not like we would be living in a better world if I could play Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom on a Switch. We would be living in a better world if I could play Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom on a PS5. And we'd also be living in a better world if I could play Saros on a I can play it on PS5, on a PC or on a Switch. So like fundamentally, there is no actual value that console exclusivity or platform exclusivity provides to the user. Like there's literally zero. The only people that think that are like people that are like, they think that they're like Sony's on their side or something like that, right? Like console losers. So yeah, I hate console exclusivity in general. Console exclusives work though. First party exclusives make sense. Third party doesn't. Well, like they do make like I'm not arguing about the economics of it. I'm arguing about the benefit of it. To me as a customer, I don't give a fuck about your first party exclusives. And by the way, all of the greatest games that have been made in the last 5 years, almost none of them are first-party exclusive games. Whether it is Elden Ring, Baldur's Gate 3, or Expedition 33, none of these video games, or even smaller games like Silksong or Megabonk, none of these video games were made on first-party. And Tears of the Kingdom is an exception. You're right. That's right. That was a very successful game. But besides that, everything else I would say is the same. And Tears of the Kingdom, Ragnarok, I know. And I'm not saying that, like, but again, just because just because it won Game of the Year doesn't mean it was massively successful. Astrobot, I'm gonna take a break for the day, right? I'm gonna take a break. I might play a game for like maybe 5 or 10 minutes to show you guys where I've been at. But like otherwise, I'm gonna take a break, so I'm pretty much just gonna chill from now on. But let me link you guys the video before I do that, and make sure to give it a like. I love Bellior, and I've supported this content for a really long time, and so make sure to do that.